So Texas state representatives are elected for 2-year terms to represent approximately 167,500 constituents each, with 150 members serving in the Texas House. Their primary duties include passing state laws, amending the Constitution, approving the state budget with all revenue-raising bills originating in the House, and they also serve on committees and assist constituents with state agency issues. A Texas representative's salary is $600 a month or $7,200 a year, plus a per diem of $221 a day while in session. No wonder you guys drag out the session. You got to make a living. During the session year, the source I had says total compensation averages about $38,140. So are you guys sure you want to do this? All right. In way of introduction, I want to thank these candidates because quite often living out here on the ranch, we get forgotten. We don't get much mail, nobody pays much attention to us, so I want to thank the candidates for their travel postcards with their family pictures on there. So I have one for Andy, I have another one for Lisa, here's another one for Andy. Oh yeah, Lisa's still in it. Andy, how much money do you have? Lisa, would you send us a picture of your family somewhere else other than the ranch? But then we get to the other postcards. And how in the world did you guys get your pictures on postcards and they're saying bad things about you? What did you guys do to these people to make them say these things about you? Anyway, thank you for the mail, and you're single-handedly keeping the U.S. mail system in business. On a more serious note, we have Mr. Andy Hopper, and Miss Lisa McIntyre here tonight, and we thank you all for coming and participating in the forum. As you will see, many of our questions tonight are taken from the draft Texas Republican priorities, which are propositions that are on the very bottom of the ballot. And I believe they're actually underneath Tim McCormick on the ballot. So please, when you vote, go all the way to the bottom of the ballot and vote on these propositions. There are 10 of them. About half of our questions tonight come from those priorities, which we as Republicans say, this is our priority, this is what we want done. So we're going to ask these people, are you going to own up to that? Okay, so that's where a lot of the questions come from. Like I said, the first 2 questions that I give them, they were given the questions, so they ought to have some pretty good answer. Then we've got 10 questions. The other 8, they're going to have to answer on the fly. Okay? And we will alternate who starts, and that's the rules. So, to Mr. Hopper, the first question is, please introduce yourself and tell us specifically why you're qualified for this office and why you want to run for election.
Well, hey, all, thank you Thank you all so much for coming out tonight and spend your evening to learn about this race and how important it is for your state and for your local community. I'm Andy Hopper. I'm joined here by my beautiful wife who have 29 years almost, and so she's been my companion and warrior in this entire effort that we've been at for a number of years. I have 3 boys. I'm a software engineer, small business owner, and I actually have been in the Guard for about 11 years now. So I just really, really believe in this state. I believe that Texas is going to be the state that is the backbone of everything that we hope to do to save the Western world and to save America. So what qualifies me for this job? You guys sent me down to Austin to break the back of an establishment that is the only state in the country that elects the Speaker of the House with Democrats, not with Republicans. And so, because of the impeachment of Ken Paxton, we had an opportunity last session to put a record number of conservatives to Austin to fight for things like school choice and for property tax relief and for election integrity, and to make sure that our House is reformed. And that's what we did. And a number of your representatives from Denton County, in fact, all but one, stood up to stand for a speaker that pledged to make sure that he would be elected by Republicans and that our rules would forever enshrine that no committee chairs, that no Democrats would be put in positions of leadership in the House. And that is exactly what we fought for. And I'm happy to say that as your representative for House District 64, by 2 different scorecards, Young Conservatives of Texas and Texans for Fiscal Responsibility, I was named the #1 most conservative legislator in the Texas House of Representatives.
Hello. All right, am I on? Can you guys hear me? Okay, so who is so glad to be out of the house with all of the eyes? I can tell you I am, for sure. So thank you, and appreciate being here. And I want to tell you guys a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Canadian, Texas. It's a little town in the Panhandle. And my dad was a farmer, rancher, and I showed quarter horses for 4 years. I've cleaned plenty of stalls, that's for sure. And I graduated from high school with 65 people and from Canadian High School in 1985. Then I moved to Denton and I graduated from UNT in 1989. And then I married Keith in 1988, and Keith is here with us, AKA Sign Boy. So Sign Boy's here with us, and if anybody needs a sign out of the river, Sign Boy is your guy, because he can retrieve the signs out of the river for you. So thank you for that. So he's my #1 supporter. We have 2 kids. I've got a son that's 33, and he is a pilot with Southwest Airlines. I've got a daughter that's 29. She manages and runs a dental lab in Tennessee. And then I have 3 rambunctious, spunky little grandkids that like dirt and, soccer. I mean, they like everything. But I want to fight to keep Texas red. And just for them. So I have several qualities that I have: leadership, management, and negotiating skills, because I'm a realtor and been in that world. And then I was elected to the board of directors for the Denton Central Appraisal District. So that qualifies me because I have managed several agents under me.
Keep the mic, you're okay.
Okay.
No, keep the mic.
I just want to tell you guys, we appreciate your applause and all that, but when you do it and they have to stop, it's counted in their 2 minutes to answer the question. So be careful about interrupting them with anything, okay? The second question to you, Ms. McIntyre, is what are your top 1 or 2 most important issues you see within House District 64? And what will you do to address these issues? And how would we measure that?
Okay, so first of all, I think this is a given for everybody, property taxes. And so anybody that says that they're going to eliminate property taxes apparently doesn't know how that works. Because if you eliminate property taxes, how are you going to pay for your fire, EMS? How are you going to pay for your police? How are you going to pay for your roads? You cannot eliminate property taxes. And then some people say, well, let's do a consumption tax. Nobody else wants a consumption tax. No more taxes for Texas. No more at all. And then the next problem I see that's specific to District 64, probably in this area, is the roads. The roads are awful. I mean, you guys have great roads in Robson Ranch, don't get me wrong. But then whenever you go out and try to hit the highway going out here on 407, okay, I've talked with engineers of TxDOT, and I'm like, how come we keep getting skipped over for the roads? What's going on here? And they said they have to be shovel ready. Okay, in order to have them shovel ready, that means that they have to move the utilities back and that they have to have an engineer's report. Well, who pays for that? The county pays for that. Well, the county doesn't have money to do that, so TxDOT just moves on. And these little rural areas, They don't have money for this. So I suggest that maybe we use a portion, maybe bigger, from the property taxes from the county and actually work on our roads out here, because whenever I get out on the road, I don't want to be in gridlock. I want to go see my grandkids. I don't know about you guys.
I'm going to redirect just a second under the mic there. As the moderator, the form committee gave me permission to redirect the question if we don't think we got an answer. So I would like for you to tell us if you can't reduce property taxes to nothing, what is your plan?
Okay, so I followed the governor's plan is what I'm following, and what he wants to do is take the general fund and then all the overages that are in the general fund and pay down the M&O on the school taxes, because let's face it, that's what the biggest part of it is the school taxes. And so pay that part down. And then, slowly you're gonna defeat that, that fund, and then probably take from the state taxes is what we're going to do, and then pay down the school taxes. But with the amendment that just went through, everybody in here should be pretty good with their school taxes, if I'm correct. So anyway, but it's the other part of the taxes that we're going to have to deal with. So does that help?
It does, thank you.
All right.
Andy, you need me to repeat the
No,
question? Okay.
totally good. Y'all appreciate it, and feel free to clap at any time. It's no problem. We both enjoy it. So here's the thing. Governor DeSantis thinks that he can eliminate property taxes in Florida. And the number one issue I hear from constituents is the fact that they are tired of paying a tax to the government on land that is basically nothing less than unrealized gains, a tax on unrealized gains, a tax to the government that you pay forever. It's a rent to the government. This is what Governor Abbott has said for many years as well. And that's why his plan starts with getting rid of school M&O, which is half of your property taxes. That's 50% elimination. A lot of folks don't understand that the state of Texas has increased its budget 44% in 4 years. That is $100 billion. $40 billion just in state funds. $40 billion in state funds. If we had been applying this for the last 10 years, we would be well on our way to eliminating property taxes entirely. And that should be the goal. Listen, if you want to be a state rep and you want to basically accomplish something, you don't ask for just this little tidbit. You ask for 10 times what you expect to get. Because if you stand outside of the window and decide it's my job as your state rep to tug and pull and to manhandle the issue as far to the right as we possibly can, then we're going to absolutely ask for what we want. If you don't ask for what you want, you have no chance of getting it. And Governor DeSantis has basically recognized that the only way that Florida's economy is going to be propelled forward is if property owners are actually able to own their land. And I think that that is an actual tangible thing that we can accomplish here in Texas. Listen, a few days ago, I heard Nancy Mace in South Carolina sitting there explaining to constituents why it's reasonable in South Carolina to get rid of the income tax. And the arguments against it are the same ones we're hearing against property taxes. Well, we can't afford that. How are we going to fund all of the things? Well, the reality is government gets too much money, and the state government is spending way too much money. So we've got to actually we've got to actually fix this problem for Texans in the long term, or otherwise our kids are never going to be able to own homes.
Okay, keep the mic because I'm going to redirect.
Okay.
The question was, what are the top one or two issues you see? Is that your answer?
No, it's just a 2-minute answer for one of the answers. The other one, and I'll tell you, like door to door, I will tell you that over this race, something that's changed and transformed is that our neighbors, our constituents are extremely stressed out about the reality that we have Muslim footholds across our state. And the reality is our state legislature has systematically reduced the ability of our local jurisdictions to be able to deal with the slightest issue and put it all at the state level. All of the power of local jurisdictions to say no to development at any kind, whether they be Muslims or gambling casinos or any of that, has been removed. And so it's our job as the state legislature to stand up for your rights and to say no to these people who have no intention of assimilating or actually doing anything to do anything other than to thwart our Constitution, both at the state and at the federal level.
All right, back to you, Mr. Hopper. As a representative, you are beholden to many groups, such as the Republican Party, the governor, your constituents, and your donors. Which group are you most beholden to? And if there are tensions between groups, how do you navigate them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will tell
They're
you.
all good questions.
Well, listen, here's the deal. The vast majority of representatives in the Texas legislature mostly care about what the other members think. Because once you go down to Austin, the general guiding philosophy is that the only way you're coming back is if the people down there like you and that the lobby likes you. And that's how you basically, and the reality is that most members actually believe that it is their job to vote for anything that comes to the floor, because it wouldn't come to the floor if you didn't want you to vote for it. I actually heard that many times. And I will tell you that the only people I care about are the people in this room and then the people in the rooms across the districts that elected me. I will tell you, I am so proud to do this job. I am so proud to represent you. It's not that good of a job. I just want to tell you, it's not that great. And the moment that you're done with me, I am totally good, but I'm happy to fight for you. And the only way I can fight for you is to say that absolutely no one gets to say on how I'm going to vote other than the contract that I make with you door to door throughout the process of running, where I tell you this is what I believe, this is what I'm going to stand for, I'm going to do exactly what I say. And if you see me in Austin voting differently than I told you, if I told you I was going to vote for school choice and I voted against school choice, or if I told you that I was going to vote for election integrity and I voted against it, that's when you get rid of me. And the reality is that there's far too many in Austin that are basically saying to one another that, I tell you what, just go ahead and vote for this thing. I know you don't like it, but we'll take care of it. We'll make sure that you get back here. And that is disgusting, and that's the culture in the House that we have got to change.
Okay, repeat the question for me, sir.
Absolutely. As a representative, you're beholden to many groups such as the Republican Party, the governor, your constituents, or your donors. Which group are you most beholden to? And if there are tensions between groups, how do you navigate them?
Well, I can certainly tell you who I'm beholden to, and that is you, the people of House District 64. And as far as like the people that support me, I don't have a report card that I get graded for every vote that I make. Yeah, I don't have any strings attached and anybody telling me how to vote for anything. And to be fiscally responsible, then I have to vote no on everything. So being fiscally responsible doesn't mean you vote no on everything. It means you vote for what's good for the district. And so there's some bills that apparently my opponent has voted for. And he says one thing and maybe doesn't quite vote that way. Whenever he says that as far as like voting for to support, what about SB 10 and voting against a budget for the governor? So, I mean, there's fiscally responsible, and then there's reasons that you should vote for that. And as far as like, yeah, I want to represent you, the people of District 64, and I want to listen to what you have. And if it means working across the aisle with people, I'm a negotiator. I've been in real estate. I know how to negotiate and get what I want. So, did we have any bills passed out of HC 64 last session? I don't believe we did. So we need somebody down there that can represent us, that can reach across the aisle, that can work with everybody, because you reach across the aisle doesn't mean that you're going to give in. It doesn't mean you're a doormat. That just means you work to get what you want, and that's what I do in real estate all the time. I represent my clients, and I get what I want, and I can do that for HC 64.
Keep the mic, Lisa.
We might have answered this, but I want to drill down on this, and this deals with property taxes. So Proposition 1 in the draft Republican propositions is Texas property taxes should be assessed at the purchase price and phased out entirely over the next 6 years through spending reductions. Will you support this? If yes, how? And if no, why not?
So we have got tons of people moving into Texas. And let me tell you, as a real estate agent, I can see that. And so that's going to be a break in the food chain, the real estate food chain. Say you want to downsize and move out of your house. Well, nobody's ever gonna wanna move because they're gonna keep their assessed value. So I believe that there's different ways that you can do that without keeping the value. Because whenever I say, people are not gonna move, people that are in their 30s and 40s, you know what the average age of the first-time home buyer is now? It's like 38. That's ridiculous. The home ownership is what makes America great. That's how you have pride. That's how we build families. That's conservative, building families. And if you never own a home, because nobody will sell their home, if you're sitting in your home, you don't want to sell it, how are we going to ever build America and families if people can't own homes?
Okay, so let me use my.
Actually, let me redirect.
Okay.
The question was, will you support the proposition that taxes would be assessed at the purchase price and phased out over the next 6 years? Will you support that, yes or no? If yes, how will you do that, pay the bills? If no, why not?
So to phase it out, I don't see how exactly we're going to phase it out, because you're going to have to be able, again, to pay for your infrastructure, your water, your EMS, your fire, your police. So you're going to have to get taxes from somewhere. I'm sorry, I hate to say that. No, I do not want to have a consumption tax. I don't want another tax. But you're going to have money to pay for something, for all of these services from somewhere.
Okay. No, I'm good. So let me address what my opponent said just a moment ago about SB 10, because it's clear she doesn't understand parliamentary procedure in the House. There was no vote against that bill. There was a vote against Senate concurrence of amendments. So let me explain to you what this bill did. Almost nothing. In fact, it was demonstrated on the floor that basically if this bill would pass, that someone in Arlington, Texas might actually save $10 on property taxes. And this bill exempted almost every jurisdiction in the state, including MUDs and MMDs. And I fought to make sure that they were put back in the bill. And I actually got an amendment on that bill to put MUDs back in the bill, because they are the entity that is screwing Texans more than anyone. That bill went to the Senate, and the Senate removed all of the good House amendments that made that bill better. And so when it comes to the House, you get an opportunity as a House member. Do you vote to concur with Senate amendments, or do you vote to not concur with Senate amendments? Is that a vote for or against the bill? Absolutely not. Because if the entire House votes against concurrence, you know what happens? It goes back to conference committee, which is part of the process. So the conservatives in the House stood together. Almost every single conservative in the House said, absolutely not. The line in the sand is here. We're not going to let this chamber scam voters again on fake property tax relief. Send it back to committee. And they let it die. The Senate let it die, not the House. But let me address the issue at hand. So the reality is that the Republican Party is going to ensure that you have the right to vote on a ballot proposition to say whether you think that you should get rid of property taxes, whether we as a state should move to a system where you are not taxed endlessly on your home, where you are not renting your property from the government. And when we talk about a consumption tax, we're talking about a system today that has so many loopholes. And we're not saying, oh, we're going to replace it with a new consumption tax. We're saying we're going to broaden the consumption tax base that we have. Legal services would be taxed, for instance. Right now, they're not. And that once you make those changes, those structural changes to the consumption tax system, you actually have a fair amount more revenue. There's a lot of issues to deal with, but the reality is we're not going to deal with them unless we actually cut spending at all levels, which is part of what Governor Abbott's plan puts us on a path to eliminate property taxes.
So I have to credit Mr. Hopper. We had a discussion about the rules over there, and he said, so if I don't answer the question, then you're going to redirect, which gives me more time to answer the question, and there's an example. So way to go, Andy. Yeah. Okay, to Mr. Hopper, to you. Conservative Republicans are sometimes labeled uncompromising. With that in mind, what is your definition of a conservative Republican? And give us an example of an issue you absolutely will not compromise on, and an issue you might compromise on.
Okay, so let me give you the greatest example we had this session, and that is when the chairman of local consent in the Texas House, who will remain nameless in this discussion, decided it was a good idea to move a bill out of committee that would honor Cecile Richards, a woman who killed and was responsible for the death of tens of millions of babies in America. And the conservatives in the House said, absolutely not on our watch. And then, to put insult to injury, they put our beloved Jill Glover and a resolution honoring her, a Denton County hero, on the same calendar. And they put us with a choice. Do you want to bend a knee? Do you want to do what you said? Do you want to not anger anyone in the House? Or are you going to kill the calendar? And conservatives in the House said, absolutely not, no question, not on our watch. And we killed the local consent calendar. And that never came to the floor. And I will tell you, the Democrats were in the back of the room sobbing because they weren't able to honor this absolute reprehensible human being. Now, let me tell you, does that make people in the House happy with you? Are they more inclined to vote for your bills when you do stuff like that? Or are you going to basically sell your soul down the river so that you can try to, please, sir, can I get my bill passed? That's not what I'm here for, and that's not what you sent me. You sent me down there to fight. That's what you sent Mitch Little over there, down there to fight, and that's exactly what we did.
We're going to redirect. Is there any issue that you can see that you might compromise?
If you tell me that that we start with a bill that eliminates all property taxes, and the best we can get is a bill that eliminates 75% of property taxes, I think that's reasonable. Now, let me tell you, because if you're talking about negotiation, the one thing you never do, whether you're negotiating for business or negotiating for yourself or negotiating to buy a car, you never sit down and start off with, hey, this is my bottom dollar. This is what I'm really willing to do. Any sort of compromise that occurs is when you have basically fought tooth and nail for everything that you can possibly get. But you don't do it until the very end, and only when you get the best deal possible. And you don't do it by laying down up front and saying, hey, listen, like, I just want to work with you. I just want to do everything I can to sit there and make you happy. That's not how you negotiate with a bunch of sharks in the Texas legislature.
Okay, I want to go back to the consumption tax thing. This is my rebuttal. So we have to consider HD 64 and the population of these cities with the consumption tax. We've got one city that's over 75,000, okay? Yes, they'll draw sales tax. They have plenty of sales tax. Then we've got the rest of the cities in HD 64. Their population is under 75,000, and they have very few businesses. How is Crum going to pay for anything? They have no businesses. With a consumption tax, they're not drawing sales tax. Denton is the only city that's over 75,000. So a consumption tax will not work. So if you, again, with the consumption tax, then what people will do, oh, well, it's cheaper in Oklahoma. We're going to go over the state line. We're going to go buy a car over there. We're going to go buy our TV over there because they don't have the taxes that we have with the consumption tax. We do not need any more taxes of any shape or form of taxes in Texas. So that's my rebuttal. Now my answer. So compromising on anything, absolutely would not compromise on the pro-life. I am 100% pro-life. I would never compromise on that. That is something I would definitely stand firm on because so many babies are being killed and it's just a tragedy. It's a tragedy in this country, in this state. So no, there's no compromising on that. Now, being honest, something that you might compromise on is like Mindy, for instance, what she was telling us with these different things with TEA. I mean, should we compromise on some of these things to see what works? I mean, do we know what's going to work? Do we have a magic ball, to see what's going to work? So do we compromise on something to see what programs, what systems are going to work? Possibly. That's a thought. So as far as compromising, nobody likes to compromise, but again, it's working together.
Redirect you in a very short few words. Tell us what your definition of a conservative Republican is.
Okay. Okay. Conservative Republican. A Republican is basically the party. A conservative is an ideology. So, but let's go ahead and say, if a mouse is in a cookie jar, does that make him a cookie? If a man is in a church, does that make him a Christian? So we get really hung up and caught up on all these names and this name calling. We all like to say we're conservative Christians and all of that. You know what? Show me you're a conservative Christian by your fruits of the Spirit, Galatians 5:22-23. Show me that you're actually a Christian conservative, because all this name calling really gets old.
And we direct you. You tell us how you define a conservative Republican.
I think historically, Republicans were 150 years ago, when they were first created in a non-social sense. Republicans came out of the Whig Party, and Republicans were known as basically mercantilists, that they basically believed that the public-private partnership was the only way things could happen. And of course, we saw that the only transcontinental railroad that succeeded and didn't go bankrupt was the one that didn't take federal funds. Zoom forward 150 years, we're still struggling with that identity, because there are so many Republicans, especially in a state that was Democrat 25 years ago, that still believe in big government, and they still believe that the only thing that can happen good is if the government gets involved and basically engages in corporate welfare or some sort of public-private partnership. And that is nothing more than just handing your tax money to big government and big businesses. What you see in the Texas legislature is the conservatives are the ones that do not agree with that. The conservatives believe that personal liberty and the ability to succeed has nothing to do with the government giving you hands out, giving you money. Film subsidies are the greatest example this session. We put hundreds of millions of dollars into the pockets of Hollywood tycoons that want to move to Texas, and we're paying them to do that. Voted no on that. Same thing with dementia research. Listen, there's a lot of argument for why we need research like that, but it's not the government's job, and it's definitely not worth billions of your tax money when the number one issue in my district is property tax relief. Those are the differences and the delineations between conservatives in the Texas legislature and Republicans in the Texas legislature. And I will tell you, the other thing is, if you side with Democrats and allow the Democrats to select your speaker, you are not a conservative in the Texas House.
And I think this question is back to you, Secretary.
Okay.
House District 64 contains both rural and urban areas that are growing rapidly. As our representative, how will you represent both groups, especially when there are competing interests? For example, property rights, water usage, or infrastructure. How will you represent both rural and urban constituents?
Okay, and I do want to have a rebuttal to the last comment made by my opponent. We do have the same ideals about conservative Republican, but you know what? It's a matter of who's going to go to Austin and actually get something done. I mean, you could go down there and say this all day long, and that you're not going to work with leadership, and you're not going to work with the other House members. So what's the point? If you're not going to get anything done, I mean, why go back? We've got to have somebody that will represent us, that will get the job done, that knows how to negotiate and knows how to work with other people. So, okay, yes, this district is so crazy how part of it is, well, actually most of it is rural. And then we've got one city. So it is going to be a very unique circumstances as far as how you deal with property rights, for instance. So, but property rights, basically, that's basically same for everybody. Everybody wants private property rights. And as far as like dealing with the different issues that go on, it is going to be a challenge, like I was saying about the bill that passed, the SB 10, that was going to try to gut the small cities and gut their budgets. It's totally different versus the big cities that have the sales tax. So it is going to have to be dealt with in a very delicate position, and with different systems in place. So, yeah, it's going to be very difficult. And how do you deal with all of that? Because it's totally a very unique district, for sure.
So that was my question, how do you deal with that?
Okay, if I had a magic ball again, that would be great.
I'm just up here answering the
yeah,
question.
so that would be a magic ball, and a crystal ball to see how it's gonna, play out. But you do have to work with your local leaders and listen to your local leaders. Listen to your mayors. Listen to what they have to say. And my office will always be open. And I will listen to those that come and talk to me. And I want to work with local leadership. My door will be open, and I will listen to what they have to say and I want to work for them and what is good for their cities.
Yeah, let's be really clear. This district is wise in the northwest part of Denton County. Every single city in this entire district is a rural city in a rural county, except for the city of Denton is the only exception. So this entire county, this entire district is growing. And one of the challenges we have in the legislature is a trajectory of developers telling the legislature exactly what they must do, which is basically to remove the power of every local jurisdiction from saying no to any development of any kind. If you want to put in tiny homes, the legislature wants to tell you that you must. If they want to put in high density developments, they're telling you that you must. If you put in supposedly like low flow toilets, then you can get exempt from any sort of impact fees, which has a huge detrimental effect on local jurisdictions. And I voted no on every single one of those bills. But there's another reason I voted no on every one of those bills. And that's because if we remove all the power of local jurisdictions to say no to development, we are also removing the power of local jurisdictions to say no to awful things like Muslims moving in and building footholds in Texas and saying no to casinos trying to build in your backyard. Those are two good reasons why I believe that the Republican Party this next legislative cycle will probably look at this issue of local control, because it's important to understand that the only way that we're going to protect the rights of local citizens is not just to have a legislature guard your liberties once every 2 years, but to be able to have your local cities and your local counties and your local jurisdictions standing up for your liberties and your rights all the time. So the reality is the best thing that we can do is try to get the state government as much as we can out of the business of telling your local entities how to work. But it also comes at another price, which is to not put MMDs and MUDs and developments that are basically taxing entities that are run by developers at an unfair advantage over all the other jurisdictions, because they're in competition with cities. You can put an MMD right in the middle of a city. You can put a MUD outside of a city. Those developers can come up there and jack up tax rates through the roof, and they know it. The one thing I've learned being in Austin is that developers run Austin and the defense contractors run Washington. And that's what we're up against. Okay.
House Bill 3154 to create the Wise Regional Water District failed in the Republican-led House, 41 to 78. What lessons do you take from that vote, and how will you address Wise County's water shortage?
Well, that entity is created. It is now a public utility agency, which is a way of creating it through ordinance, not through statute. So that exists today, the entity that would have been created by that bill. I will also tell you that a companion bill by Senator Tan Parker also failed in the House. That bill died in the House and died in the legislature because my mayors told me to hold the line and to make sure that we do not allow MUDs to control that district. And so even the morning of that bill coming to the floor, we had developers trying to give us amendments that would make that bill passable, that they would support. And we said, I went back to my mayors and I said, listen, do you want it? Do you want these amendments? They said, absolutely not, hold the line. So you can sit there and blame me, I suppose, if you want to, for it dying in the House, maybe because we killed the local consent calendar, maybe because we stood up and fought on all the issues that matter to Texans. But that doesn't explain why Senator Tan Parker's bill died in the House. Doesn't explain that at all. And it also doesn't explain why and if I was so terrible about not being able to get that bill passed, then why did Senator Tan Parker endorse me? Why did nearly every mayor in the Wise County Mayors Coalition endorse me? Because they believe that I can fight for them better in Austin than anyone else on this stage.
I think people read that, and you might have answered this with the local ordinances, so what will you do to get the water that Wise County needs, and what will be done?
Yeah, so at this point, it's not a legislative solution. A regional water district can be created through statute. It'd also be created by all of the jurisdictions passing it through ordinance, which they decided. It was the backup plan. That's why we were willing to stand up. We knew that there was always a backup plan, and that's called a PUA, a Public Utility Agency. So that exists, and so the reality is that is now a functioning entity, and they will be able to now get funds from the Water Development Board and be able to pursue water projects as a group, as a county, as all of the cities and all of the entities in Wise County to be able to get water from either the Upper Trinity up here in Denton County or Tarrant County Regional Water District. So that's the solution. It's in work. We're good.
Okay, great. Just back and proud of you, I'll rephrase the question just a little bit because it sounds like the problem is solved. What lessons do you take from that vote? And do you agree that the Wise County water issues have been solved, or is there something else you would do as a legislator?
Actually, I want to address the endorsement thing. First of all, and it's common courtesy whenever you do work with an incumbent that you do endorse them. That's common courtesy. The governor has endorsed people because of the voucher bill, and anybody that voted for the voucher bill, the governor has said he would endorse, and then Trump fell into line behind that. So as far as endorsements are fine. If they mean something to somebody, I don't know, but that's just common courtesy. Let's talk about the water bill. That water bill would have saved the Wise County people so much money, and they realize it. They realize that they got failed. And whenever I'm knocking on doors, I'm hearing just the opposite, that there are certainly people that are upset. Because if that water district would have been legislatively created, it creates federal grants that will be given to Wise County, and also they get low interest bonds if that water district is created. So no, the problem is not solved. It is not over, because I've had some elected officials come to me that have said, we can still get this done. We need somebody that will go up there and that can work with leadership and that will work with other members of the floor to get this done. So please, we need somebody that will work for us.
Thank you. We're about out of time, so I'm picking our favorite question here. One of the propositions, and this has been partially addressed, proposition number 10 is Texas should prohibit Sharia law. What would you do as a legislator to combat Sharia law?
Who's turn? Okay. So I will say, first of all, we have been part of a working group with about a dozen legislators since February of last year and a number of senators to deal with this issue. And there are certain things that we just should not say out loud because we need operational security. These folks have been operating in the cloak of darkness for a long time. And the reality is that there are many things, many tools in the toolbox for the state legislature. Let me give you a couple of examples. We must make sure that they feel as uncomfortable in Texas practicing these horrific practices of indoctrinating people in the state, and kids in particular, as possible. We should absolutely ban the use of hijab or burqas in public schools. We should absolutely make sure that halal foods are banned in any public sphere, including by any public entity. That is going on in Europe, and now you only have halal blessed foods, which is basically your food blessed by a foreign god. We have to make sure that we take proactive steps to make sure that these H-1B visas are closed in every way that we possibly can. And two things that we can do in Texas is say, listen, no public entity can employ H-1B visas. That means universities as well. We need to make sure that no contracts are given to any entity that employs H-1B visas by state money. We also need to take a proactive stance on the reality of the fact that we can push back on this constitutionally. Now, let me try to break this down and not to get too deep here. There's something called the incorporation doctrine. That was established in the early part of the 20th century by a false and ridiculous understanding of the 14th Amendment. Specifically, as it pertains to this conversation, the Establishment Clause in the First Amendment was incorporated in 1944, which basically says that the federal government gets to define what religion is and what states can do in terms of religion. There is no situation you should be a public official in Texas and take your oath of office on anything but the Bible. Texas needs to declare that this is a Christian state. For most of the 19th century, states had defined religions, and we need to get back to that, because the only way that we're going to solve this problem is through the blessing of the Almighty God, and by declaring Texas to be Christian, we'll make it naturally inhospitable to these foreign religions that intend to overthrow our government one step at a time.
And I would have to agree on that 100%. There is no room for Sharia law in Texas. No room for that. And what they don't try to integrate what they're trying to do, because people go, it's a religious freedom. It is not. They are trying to integrate and take over our government. It's totally different between a Catholic, Baptist, Church of Christ. That's religious freedom. These people are coming in wanting to take over our government, is what they want to do. So absolutely no way, no how. But this is what I find really interesting and crazy. Okay, so we all know about the culture of Sharia law and how they treat women. Okay, where are all those women liber people that were rioting in the streets with those pink hats? Where are those people? Why are they not taking up for women? Where did these people go? I mean, this culture treats women awful. So it's like the liberals, they speak out of both sides of their mouth. So 1 minute, they're, for, Sharia law, and then the next minute they've got their pink hats on yelling in the streets. So no Sharia law.
I am so glad I chose that question. We're ending with an agreement up here. So let there be no doubt. All right, last question, and Ms. McIntyre, you'll go first. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for their final appeals and rebuttals. Please include why we should vote for you versus your opponent.
Guys, whenever we get ready, and I go to Austin, and we get ready to go into session, and the doors close to the House of Representatives, it's going to be a matter of who's going to work for you. My opponent says, I don't want to play the game. Well, let me see. If you don't play the game, how are you going to win the game? You got to get in there. I'm not going to stand on the sidelines. I'm not a stand on the sidelines kind of person. I'm going to get in the game and play, because I want to represent you, the people of District 64. I want to work for you and get things done. We've got to have somebody in there that can work with leadership and that can work with the other people on the floor. Yeah, reach across the aisle, because if that's what it takes, to get what I need for my district, then that's what I'm gonna do. To get the roads fixed, to work on property taxes, that's what I'm gonna do, is reach across the aisle, and by gosh, I'm gonna get what I need. Because I can work with the other people, I have negotiating, leadership, and management skills, and I can get it done. So, I wanna think of my campaign as a story of David versus Goliath. I'm David, and then I've got my big money giant Goliath over here. And guys, we all know how that story came out. So anyway, I'm going to ask you, I would please appreciate your support. Please vote for me. I would appreciate it. If you have any questions for me at all, I'll be back here at my campaign table, and I would love to talk to you. Thank you for letting me come out.
Well, that's an interesting analogy. So let me kind of transform that just a little bit. 2 years ago, I ran the second of 2 campaigns against an incumbent that spent $2 million to hold that seat. And he was financed by an organization called Texas for Lawsuit Reform that fought tooth and nail to make sure that Ken Paxton was impeached. And I fought to unseat that incumbent. And then both of those races, my opponent was one of his largest and most vocal supporters online. She supported the impeachment of Ken Paxton. She supported every move of Lynn Stuckey in the way that he operated. I will tell you, one of the things that was most egregious that my opponent said in any debate was he got kind of flustered when I was calling him out on his liberal votes because he was one of the most moderate Republicans in the House. And he said, they don't send me down there to vote no. And I couldn't understand that. It made no sense to me. So I got down to Austin and I had a bunch of representatives come out and say, hey, Andy, your life would be so much easier. Just hit yes. Just hit yes. If you just hit yes, it's easy. You get to go to dinner. People leave you alone. They vote for your stuff. Just vote yes. It doesn't come to the floor unless they want it to be on the floor. Because the Republican leadership, if you believe that they should be given that authority in that jurisdiction, they wouldn't want it to come to the floor. It's the leadership that wants to come to the floor. You're just playing ball. You're doing the right thing. And I'll tell you, that is exactly right. If that's what you want to do, you can do that. And there's a whole group of Republicans that believe that it was way easier to play ball by voting for a speaker chosen by Dems. And I will also tell you that 1/3 of every bill passed in the Texas House was a Dem bill, authored by Democrats in a Republican-led legislature. And I'm getting a little mad because it's angering. We're the only state that does it this way. And it's ridiculous. And that's what we're fighting against. My friend Mitch Little over there has on his Twitter feed, he says, nothing matters until we reform the House. And that's what we're down there to reform. That's why I'm willing to stand up with people like Mitch Little and Brett Money and Shelley Luther and Mike Olcott to make sure that this House operates on the parameters that you defined. You've elected Republicans to lead the House, not to have 52 Republicans vote against a speaker in a chamber with only 88 Republicans. Yes, you heard me right. Only 30-some Republicans voted for the speaker because all the Democrats voted for the speaker. That's what we're up against. And that's what we're going to fight. We need more conservatives in the House, not less conservatives. This session was transformed because 2 years ago in the 2023 session, we only passed 6 Republican legislative priority bills. But because we had so many conservatives fighting on the floor, resting tooth and nail to make sure we got the most out of this session, we got 44 Republican legislative priority bills passed. There are 2 kinds of representatives. Representatives that play ball and pass bills, and representatives that fight tooth and nail and kill bills, and I'm that guy.
No, I'm sorry, we're out of time. All right. In the interest of time, because we roll up the sidewalks out here at 9 o'clock, we need to give you an hour to get home. This concludes our forum, so please give both candidates a big hand.